Hello and welcome to another edition of Wi-Fi Soft training videos. In this section, we are going to understand how to configure pass-through URLs inside UniBox controllers. Let's go and log into UniBox and then navigate to Authentication Pass-through section. In the pass-through section, basically you will be able to see all the configured pass-through URLs so far, and also you'll get to see a list of pre-configured pass-through URLs. Now first let's understand what is a pass-through URL. Pass-through URL is basically a URL of an external website or external server that you want your users to access without authenticating through the UniBox controller. So as you know, when you set up a Wi-Fi hotspot, all the traffic to the internet for a particular user is blocked until the user authenticates himself on the UniBox. So if for example if you want to show the user an external URL before the user gets online, you have to add that particular URL inside the pass-through section. The classic example of this is that when you set up a paid Wi-Fi hotspot and you want the user to go to an external payment system like PayPal for authentication or for payments. In this case, the user has to first make a payment before the user will get access to the hotspot or to the internet. Now, this is a catch-22 situation because in order for the user to authenticate, the user needs to go to certain websites on the internet, but the user can't go to the internet until the user has authenticated himself. In this scenario, the pass-through URL is used so that the administrator can selectively configure which particular URLs the user can access before authenticating on the network. So adding a pass-through URL is very simple. All you need to do is click on the plus sign and select on which controller you want to configure the pass-through URL. Remember that you can run multiple hotspot services within UniBox. So you need to configure on which particular controller that particular pass-through URL needs to be added. Now, the next thing you need to add is the pass-through URL. So let's take an example. We want to enable the user to go to PayPal for making payments. Now, PayPal may provide multiple links for uh, for the pass-throughs, because you may have to go to different pages or different servers within PayPal. In this scenario, you will have to enter all the URLs needed for the PayPal to work correctly. So, for example, um, so these are some of the URLs. So you will have to find out the URLs that are needed for a particular payment system to work correctly. And I'm going to give it a particular mail, and that's it. So here in this case, you will have to enter only one URL at a time. So one pass-through URL, you have to save this, and then you can add another pass-through URL for this particular controller. So this will be PayPal objects.com, and you select the controller as default, and lastly this is PayPal object, right? So you have saved this, close. So any configuration that you have done will only get applied unless and only after you have clicked on the apply configuration changes. So the apply configuration changes will push these changes over and will generate a new configuration for the UniBox. So below this particular section, you'll also see the list of pass-through URLs that you may have to configure when you set up a particular service or particular method of authentication. So there are a list of pass-through URLs for PayPal for Android devices. That means if you want to enable pass-throughs for the Android devices to go to certain sections of Google, or for Apple to certain Apple URLs, you have to enter this particular URLs configured here. Similarly, if you have enabled social media login in UniBox, that means you are allowing users to log in through their social media handles. You will have to add the respective social media pass-through URLs that are defined in this section. So here, for example, you'll see all the Facebook pass-through URLs that you need to add for the Facebook authentication to work correctly. Uh, Once you have added this and applied the configuration changes, the pass-through URLs will take effect on your Captive portal. With that, we conclude this training video for how to add pass-through URLs in UniBox. Thank you so much for watching.